Let's open in a word of prayer. Lord, we pray that you will bless our time together today and that you'll give us discernment as we discuss some of the important issues of the day. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, I have to tell you, every week I get up here and say that it's harder and harder to pull everything together in a coherent fashion. And I start earlier and earlier every week. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I usually get up at 2 or 3 on Sunday mornings to finish up. And about 7 a.m., I'm just like, forget it. I'm just going to get up there and look like a blubbering idiot that doesn't organize his stuff, because it's really kind of crazy. So I'm going to try to go through some things today. I want to talk about the Board of Peace meeting. I want to talk a little bit about AI stuff. I want to talk about, of course, the potential of war with Iran and other countries. I have an extended clip that I'm going to play in connection with what's going on in Israel that's a little bit of a response to the Tucker Carlson interview of Ambassador Huckabee the other day. I must admit that this is why I titled everything this today, The Days of Duh-Lusion. I've been looking at comments on Facebook and Christian prophecy sites and that type of thing, and I would say that on a lot of them, 60 to 80% of them are fully supportive and praising Tucker Carlson and the way he did that interview. And it's absolutely shocking to me. And I'll talk about that. Somebody remind me to talk about his claim that he was detained at security at Ben Gurion Airport, in the private jet part of the security airport. It's shocking. So today we called this the Days of Delusion, and I could say the Days of Delusion are coming at breakneck speed, I think would be appropriate. And we read about that in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and it says, God will send them a great delusion. And it's kind of tied to the whole theme there of 2 Thessalonians 2, which is talking about the gathering together to him in the day of the Lord, and the apostasy and the falling away from the faith. And by the way, I firmly believe that the apostasy is falling away from the faith. It's a rebellion. It's never been used any other way in the history of Koine Greek. So, and it kind of is progressive, and it's sort of similar to Romans chapter 1. Remember, Romans chapter 1 talks a little bit about God will give them up to a reprobate mind. And really what it means there is they lose the ability to reason. In fact, let me start with that, because it's something that's it's always good. It's like a shot of adrenaline. Gets me really upset, because I was putting together some things. I'm going to be in California. Right now, the only thing that I have scheduled is Wednesday night, March 11th. I think it starts at 6 or 6:30 at Rock Harbor Church in Bakersfield with Brandon Holthouse. And so I'm around in Southern California the prior weekend if somebody wants to contact me about coming to speak or getting together or something like that. So that'd be the weekend around March 6, 7, 8. And I saw Brandon do something. I know. So I saw Brandon do something on the transgender issue, Brandon Holthouse. And I texted him last night, maybe we should talk about this. And we'll probably still talk about this, because the likelihood that anybody's going to remember what I say anyway is pretty slim. But Romans 1 is an example of a delusion and a reprobate mind. And then 2 Thessalonians 2 says people will buy the ultimate lie, but they'll be given over to they'll just be given a spirit of delusion. And I think we see this happening. Now, I could make this very, very long, but I'll try to shorten it a little bit. This is about the transgender shooting, of which can we agree that there have been many of these? And initially, when this one happened in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, which is a rural, used to be a coal mining town. I don't know if it still is a coal mining town, sort of in the middle section, northeastern part of British Columbia. And British Columbia is very, very big. When I spoke in Calgary a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, we had people who came from British Columbia, and they had to fly to Calgary because it was so far. And when we got to British Columbia, we drove all the way to Vancouver after we left Calgary. That's a very long drive. That's like, you're talking like 12 hours. The people that came to hear me and others speak at the conference told me they lived a 15-hour drive from Vancouver. And they weren't even all the way up into British Columbia. So it's kind of hard to grasp what this is. So anyway, in Tumbler Ridge, it was about 9 days ago, a boy, teenager, who was transitioning, went into a school, shot it up, killed 8 people, then committed suicide. And there are 2 that are still in, I think, fairly critical condition from that shooting, so you should pray for them. One may be, I saw a tweet from the mother of the child saying, I don't know that she'll ever be the same. She'll ever be with us again. And this guy had been going through treatment to become a female, being given hormones, and even had surgeries and mutilated and hormones. So, Pam, I'm going to go ahead and share this because Pam and I were never able to have children. We had fertility issues. And for a while, Pam was on years of fertility treatments. And these are hormones. And during that period of time, Pam developed I would say, a very severe case of PMS. To the point where she really couldn't, I don't know how to say this, she thought she was losing her mind. And she found me very irritating. That was sort of an indication that something was really, really wrong. And I mean, yeah, it was at an elevated level. So we went to the doctor. But the point is, when you're giving these hormones, in our case, so we could have a baby, there are reactions to that. And they're giving these hormones to kids who are going through puberty or not through puberty yet. It is insanity and delusion on an epic scale. But the insanity and delusion operates a lot. So here's an article from the Wall Street Journal, about a couple days after the shooting. And in Canada, they were not really, the law up there doesn't really allow them to identify this as a transgender thing. And by the way, it happened in Rhode Island. Remember, the guy went in and shot up the hockey rink and killed his family? Look at the pictures of him. It's like I don't know how to say this in a kind way. It's a freak show. So this kid in Tumbler Ridge, and so when you look through the Wall Street Journal article, let me just expand it here a little bit, like this. So look, this is a male, born a male. You don't change that. And it is a massive delusion that we have government agencies, governments, hospitals, medical associations that think they can. It's a total, complete delusion. Listen, when I see a story about this, or I see that guy who shot his family in Rhode Island, I'm mad at the system, and I feel a lot of empathy and sadness for that person, for what they're going through and how they're being treated by the medical establishment. Years ago, I've said this many times, Peter, I think his name was Peter or Paul McHugh, he was the head of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University. They were the first hospital to do sex reassignment surgeries. They have a lot of data. Over 10 years ago, he wrote an article, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and said, because to respond to the claim that if we don't do this, they'll commit suicide, right? In British Columbia, they did it, and he still committed suicide, and he took 8 people out with him. McHugh said, we researched it, and we found that if we did nothing, they were likely to outgrow it. Maybe some therapy. In well above 90% of the cases. But if we did the sex reassignment surgery, our research indicated they were 19 times more likely to commit suicide. Now, who has compassion and caring for for the people who are suffering through this? And a lot of times it comes from abuse and other things like that. And they do need counseling. I get all that, but understand what's being done at the level that we are it's insanity. I was talking to a friend who's been to Burning Man. They go to Burning Man to witness to people. I'm going to do a conference with Carl Tekrob this summer in Brookville, Ohio in July. Go there for a conference. You can find it online. And Carl and others go there and they set up, I think it's debauchery on an epic scale. They go there and I think this is one of the most brilliant outreach things I've ever seen. They set up a camp. Everybody sets up their camps at Burning Man. The camp of the unknown God. It's Acts 17. That's what they're living out there. And they witness to people, lead them to the Lord. But there are people there that have these bafflement things with the sex organs from both sexes. And because this is a demonic, dark spiritual debauchery that is being dealt with. So, but look at the article. So the Wall Street Journal is not made up of lunatics, you think, you hope. This is a male. Look at all the references in this article. During her teen years, talking about this person, they interacted with her. She lived with her mother and younger siblings. She died from a self-inflicted, her online activity. She had this, this. The trans woman also shared her concerns about the process of transitioning and her interest in anime cartoons and illicit drugs. I'm speaking at Vegas at a conference in about 3 weeks, Harvest Life, Calvary Chapel, or Calvary Chapel Harvest Life. I don't know which one it is. And I was, looking at hotels and everything, and hotels are all booked up. So I went and I said, what conventions are going on in Las Vegas while I'm going to be there to speak at this prophecy conference? Well, one was there going to be 900 anesthesiologists in town for a convention while I'm there. That's got to be a real exciting conference where people whose job is to put people to sleep are coming to talk about what they do. But then the other one that's starting just a day or two before, actually it starts on Sunday, it's an anime conference where these type of people are coming. And I'm telling you, I'm trying to stay away from that area because I say this with all love and compassion that I can possibly muster. It's going to be a freak show. I've been to Comic-Con in towns at the hotel where Comic-Con people were staying, and it was a freak show. I mean, people walking around in Spock costumes. It was like Big Bang Theory without the pretty Hollywood people. That's what I would say. That was a couple years ago in Puyallup, Washington. And by the way, how many are they expecting to come in for this convention in Vegas? 50,000. 50,000 people. You think I want to go down to the convention area and the Strip? I'm going to avoid that like the plague. So that's one part of the story. And when the National Post in Canada posted about this, what happened, they usually have a yellow banner down the side of the page. They put black banners down the side of the page for days, because this was a national tragedy in Canada. Okay? And now it comes out, this is in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, OpenAI employees raised alarms about Canada's shooting suspect months ago. He was using ChatGPT. He was having conversations with ChatGPT, talking about some very dark things, and the humans at OpenAI saw it. And they had a meeting about it, and they decided, well, we only need to report that if it's an open, imminent threat of harm to other people. So they didn't do anything about it. That's why we live in the days of Duh-Lusion. So by the way, we talked about AI. There's no guardrails on this thing, folks. You need to be very careful with your kids around this stuff. Now OpenAI, other AI companies are saying, hey, our bots and everything, they're starting to bully humans. And there are a number of lawsuits about people who've been convinced by their AI chat partner to commit suicide. There are lawsuits about this all over the country. And is anybody putting in guardrails? I'm not seeing it. Somebody just made up some stuff that go, through OpenClaude or Claude, CLAWD, part of Anthropic. Some guy who worked there, he just for fun, he kind of unleashed all these AI agents. And now there's like 1 million agents out there that kind of came out of this, and they've set up their own church with the theology and everything. How good do you think the theology is? If the people who created this and running it don't see the problem here, especially when it's happening all over the world. So OpenAI, look at this article. This says too, this is yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, about her interactions with ChatGPT, her post, her behavior, her activity. Now, the ironic thing about this is Tumbler Ridge in rural Canada. This article appears also in National Post yesterday, and then in another newspaper about a school board trustee in a town called, it's right on the far east side of Vancouver, near Abbotsford, if you've ever been there. And by the way, Vancouver is the prettiest city on the planet. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But in Challewick, the school board member was opposed to the Alphabet Mafia agenda. He spoke out against it. So it was reported on Friday that the school board guy had been charged for a human rights violation for creating a hostile work environment for the teachers who were supportive of what the Alphabet Mafia, and you know what I'm talking about when I talk about Alphabet Mafia, wanted to push in the school. He opposed it. He was fined $750,000 for that. And I've seen editorials in Canada saying, oh, it's so wonderful, they've shutting this guy down. When this happened last week with this person in Tumbler Ridge. By the way, I started investigating it. Challewick is kind of a, Challywhack, I'm sorry. It kind of maybe fits, really, Challywhack. Is kind of an unusual name. So I Googled it. I searched it. I did my little lawyer deal. They had just moved to Tumbler Ridge. The mother and this child, and the mother was killed in the shooting up there. They had just moved there from Challywhack. Now, I have a friend, I spoke last year in Okanagan, Washington. Wonderful people, wonderful church. But it's cowboy town. It's the Okanagan Valley, and it kind of goes up into Canada. So this is in the Okanagan newspaper group from Canada, this article about the find. And you're not going to find it in a lot of the major newspapers in Canada. Why would they want to talk about that? Because you can make all the connections when you talk about it and you look at it objectively. It's maddening. It's the days of Duh-Lusion. And if you don't think it's in our schools around here, it is. Okay. Let's see. Well, it's interesting. So let's talk about the Iran thing. So this is from 2 weeks ago, the day after Are We Prepared for a Tsunami? The day after the U.S. goes after Iran. And there's a lot of firepower in the Middle East right now. It's beyond even, except for troops, on the ground troops, it's beyond the Iraq War. Excuse me, I have got to get to my... Problem is I don't even have time to delete out all the stuff from the week before, so I have to get to the place in my presentation where I'm going to do something. And so I might do something, whoops. And I talked about that last week. And like, when is he going to do something? So here, this is a map from a week ago that I used. This is from INSS, and they've got this great map of the Middle East. You can see Iran, and you see the aircraft and ships and that type of thing. That was a week ago. Here's a little bit further out view. And now look at it today. So people are making a lot of plans. And I could go for several hours with detailed reports, data, prognostications, and that type of thing. If you think that there's been a buildup of military forces in the Middle East, it's nothing compared to the people talking about it, about what's going to happen. That far exceeds the amount of military might that's been put out there. It's really unbelievable. So there's a lot of question. What's going to happen? When's it going to happen? And everybody says, well, it could be 3 days to 3 months. Trump at the Board of Peace meeting the other day said, I think something will happen in 10 days. What will happen? And look, you don't want to tell everybody in advance, but it's kind of hard with open source intelligence people doing maps like this to not know that we're building big forces up. There's, people who do that on their YouTube channels. There's a YouTube channel out there. I think I put a link in the show notes called IranMonitor.org. And they have like links to ships, ship traffic, air traffic, and all this stuff. And we've done, I think, over 800 C-117 flights. Have you ever seen a C-117 aircraft? Like, and when it flies overhead, you think it's like an eclipse, right? Like blocks out the light. It's huge. You see them flying in and out of Wright-Patterson if you're ever over that way. And so we've done like over 800 of those flights. China and Russia have done a lot of transport flights to Iran too. People think they're bringing in air defense systems because a lot of those were destroyed back in June. And so the question is, what's going to happen? How is the attack going to go? I think I mentioned this It could come straight from Israel. There's another one. It could come across, Syria, Jordan, Iraq to Iran. Also could come up there at the top. You see the white arrow come down through Azerbaijan. That's kind of a risky way. Could come out of the Gulf from the ships down there. And now we're bringing the Gerald Ford into the Mediterranean. It's going through the Straits of Gibraltar, or did yesterday. And so it'll be by Israel within a couple, 3 days. And so some people think when it gets there, that's when everything's going to cut loose. But their guess is as good as anybody's else. And another one that seems to have opened up is coming from the Stan republics, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, into Iran from the northeast. And there are a lot of target sites and that type of thing. So what's going to happen? Do we have the military ordinances to penetrate these? Well, it took 14 bombs to sort of knock out the nuclear program. But now everybody's concerned, well, there are 400 kilograms of enriched plutonium that we've never been able to account for. Where is it? Is it still in Iran? Did they ship it someplace else? Did they move it? They're hardening bunkers. And the problem with the delay is it just allows them to continue to delay. So the Atlantic Council, and I'm not a huge fan of the Atlantic Council, but the Atlantic Council has there's a link in the show notes to this. Okay. By the way, you have 5,000 characters in the show notes to put things, and I'm linking so much stuff now, we're running out of space. We don't have enough space for that. And while I'm thinking about it, Tuesday morning, I think I'm going to live stream it. Be sure to watch it. I'm interviewing a young lady. Well, that's sort of a big universe in the world now at my age. I'm interviewing Karis Rhea from the Epic Times, and she just recently speaking. She's in Israel right now. She's American, but she's very good at anti-Semitism, and she wrote an article with Dumasani Washington almost 2 years ago about Tucker Carlson's interview of Munther Isaac. And it really was one of the first big published articles. It's a tablet magazine. It's called The Arsonist. You can find it online. Karis Rhea, R-H-E-A, and Dumasani, spelled like Dumasani, right? D-U-M-I-S-A-N-I, Dumasani Washington. They co-authored it, and it's a masterclass in how to analyze what Tucker's doing, that he's not interviewing people. It is shocking to me when I see these comments. Oh, Tucker's fine. What do you mean Tucker's anti-Semitic? I don't understand it. It's the days of Duh-Lusion, folks. And I'm shocked at some of the people that are saying this. They should know better. It's troubling. So the question is, are we going to take out the leadership, the supreme leader? So the Atlantic Council has a big article up at it's a think tank, and I would call it, I would be generous to describe it as center left. They're kind of left wing, they're globalist, that type of thing. But they have a pretty good article about 10 predictions about the potential U.S. strikes on Iran. So let's just go through them. First one, Khomeini will not offer a last-minute strong deal. How many believe that the Iranians are negotiating in good faith? Only in good faith if you assume that the Iranians are lying to you all the time, the Iranian leadership. So Khomeini will not offer a last-minute strong deal, and they judge that prediction as high confidence. That's pretty easy, low-hanging fruit, geopolitical analysis fruit to come to that conclusion. Trump will not accept a last-minute weak deal. Moderate confidence that that is true. And I'll be honest with you, if Steve Witkoff is involved and Trump is trusting that guy, I would move that up to very low confidence that he's not going to accept a weak deal. I do not understand this relationship. I'll play you a clip of Witkoff in just a moment. And when I play it, I hope you understand the dire straits we are in with the people who are running around the Middle East negotiating on behalf of the United States interest. I do not include Mike Huckabee in those, and I'll maybe get to that. And I'll only do that if I really want to get a lot of hate mail. So, if Trump appears with third prediction, if Trump appears willing to accept a weak deal, then Netanyahu will preempt by striking Iran. High confidence. Israel's going to do something. Iran is building missiles like crazy. I'll go through an analysis about why maybe they're not going to make it. They're not going to do as well as they can because of some things that were done back in June that a lot of people miss. I've got an analysis from Alma Research to do that. Trump will be, number 4, Trump will be presented with 3 strategic options: enforce, degrade, or remove. High confidence. And that's going to come from the National Security Council and others in our security establishment. Now, the Atlantic Council, I think they're confident that they've got some guys who can decide. Trump will choose the first option, enforce. Low confidence. Trump is caught in a trap of his own making, unfortunately. In contrast to the incident back in 2019, when he correctly rejected the Pentagon strike options designed to retaliate against Iranian forces, shooting down a U.S. drone, this time Trump drew a red line that the Iranian regime then clearly crossed. And he did say, I mean, it's been 2 months ago, right? In late December, he said, help is on the way. Go protest, help is on the way. And now we're hearing things about maybe 200,000 people have been killed by the Iranian regime. By the way, I would try to graph that out to compare the number killed by the Iranian regime to the number of protests that are taking place on university campuses. And the graph paper would have to be too big to show the contrast. Even if I put 200,000, a scale of 1 inch equals 100,000, I still might not have big enough graph paper because there's no protests. It's 0. So they say low confidence on this. Number 6, Khomeini will order a fundamentally symbolic response. Moderate confidence. I think that's low confidence. I would disagree. The Iranian regime are Shia radical, well, I hate the term radical Islam. They are radical Islamists, apocalyptic, Shia, 12ers, Mahdi, we'll bring the Mahdi, we'll bring the end of the world. And if they think they're going out, they're going to take as many people with them. And people that are following the Iran protest are very concerned about the fact that they will kill as many Iranians as they can on the way out. Because they don't think like us. In fact, I want you to see Witkoff's interview on Fox with Laura Trump last night. This is Witkoff being asked about, how are the Iranian negotiations going?
I know that we have red lines here from the U.S. How about over with Iran?
The president asked me that this morning, and I don't want to use the word frustrated. It's almost because he understands he's got plenty of alternatives. But it's curious. He's curious as to why they haven't, I don't want to use the word capitulated, but why they haven't capitulated. Why under this sort of pressure with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there, why they haven't come to us and said, we profess that we don't want a weapon, so here's what we're prepared to do. And yet it's hard to sort of get them to that place.
Well, there's that.
So he's kind of like, I don't know what's going on. Why aren't we put all this firepower there? They're not agreeing to it. Yeah, that's the way they are. Look, so this would be a good thing. Tucker, go look at history. You talk about the Iraq War and all that stuff, and that was all Americans. Before the Iraq War that we did in the early 90s, there was an Iraq-Iran war. You remember that? There's no doubt in that war, Now, Iran is much bigger than Iraq, and they're both Muslim countries, and they fought a war for 8 years. 1 million people died. It's like forgotten to history. They were sending 8-year-olds in as soldiers for cannon fodder. And Tucker, who should know that if he just opened his eyes and peeled back the Jew hatred part of his brain that blocks him from thinking rationally, he would know that they did this. And then he has the audacity in the interview to ask Mike Huckabee, well, is it okay to kill a 14-year-old soldier who's pointing a gun at you? Yes. You do not understand. In fact, there is a website. I don't have time to get into it. It's called Impact-SE. It's out of one of the Scandinavian countries, Sweden or Norway, I think. They analyze textbooks in Gaza, West Banks, those countries, Jordan and elsewhere. Go read what is in the textbooks. They're training their children to do this. How do you deal with this when you're trying to protect your country? And Tucker, well, I would never do that. It's immoral. Fine. Can we just buy the guy a tent in Gaza and send him over there for a while? Or send him to Saudi Arabia. You know, he says, oh, Saudi Arabia loves Christians. Tucker, I will rent you a car. It'll be a big fancy SUV and drive down to Mecca. Oh, by the way, it'll be a one-way rental because you're never coming back. And, oh, well, they love us. He is delusional. Oh, now I'm sweating. So, let's see. So, Atlantic Council. Okay, number 7. If Khomeini miscalculates, then Trump will escalate to degrade, but he will be willing to cut the operation short. There's a high confidence of that. And I think that might happen, in which case nothing has been accomplished, in my opinion. Number 8, the Iranian people will rise up again after the U.S. strikes. Moderate confidence. This is a very difficult one to determine because Iran's very divided. The Crown Prince has a lot of support, but it's not, I wouldn't call it overwhelming support. And sometimes when you attack a country, even if they hate the regime, they love the country, so they get mad at the people attacking the regime. And that's happened in the past in Iran before. Number 9, if widespread protests emerge, the regime will murder en masse again. High confidence. This is, I would say, absolutely no doubt that this is going to happen. And if there's an attack, they will murder their people to try to make the body count higher to make Israel or the United States look bad. It's going to happen. That's going to be the propaganda op. And number 10, if Iranian protesters are again massacred, Trump will quickly escalate to degrade and remove. They say high confidence of that, and I think we're hopeful that something like that will happen. So here's the Iranian leadership structure. Some people think, well, we'll just get the president in there. He's democratically elected. He's selected from a pool of extremists in the first place to stand for election by Ayatollah Khomeini. So even if you take out the regime, then you have the IRGC, and that may be worse because you can see what they're doing on the streets of Tehran. That could be a very big problem. So this is at Alma. This is Iran's trying to rebuild themselves. Some of the problems that they have is that it's better for them to use solid fuel rockets. But to build solid fuel rockets, you need something that they have to import. So there were a lot of strike on warehouses where it's like sodium perchlorate or something like that was stored to build the solid rocket fuel. And those were attacked back in June by Israel and destroyed. And now the question is, are they able to get resupplied from China with all these ships and everything around? And understand that in the Straits of Hormuz there, in that little horn there that goes up, there's like a 4-mile wide shipping lane, 2 miles in, 2 miles out. And a lot of ships go through there, and they're very big ships. So it's a little bit like the freeway, when you got the big ocean going down to one lane. So it can get a little bit jammed up. So, but here's an example of a tweet. This is the Ayatollah the other day, a weapon more dangerous than a warship. And they're talking about sea drones. And they say, we're going to sink the ships. We've got this under control. There's a picture of it. And this is from the Ayatollah's website, a weapon more dangerous than a warship. The U.S. president constantly says that the U.S. has sent a warship toward Iran. Of course, a warship is a dangerous piece of military hardware. However, more dangerous than that warship is the weapon that can send that warship to the bottom of the sea. So they're threatening to do that. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. So here's, Israel Hayom. They have all these Gerald Ford coming in, all this military firepower. Here's a discussion. I didn't play it last week. It's from a little over a week ago on I-24 News. And they're talking about some of these situations going on in the Middle East. So here we go.
Turkey is working hard to secure a deal and avoid any military strike on the regime in Iran. The Foreign Minister, Hakan Fidan, says both the United States and Iran are showing flexibility in efforts to revive a nuclear deal. He claims the US is willing to tolerate limited uranium enrichment, but warns that including the ballistic missile program could derail the talks. More on that, Dr. Sinan Sidi is a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Welcome to the program, Sinan. So, dealing with Iran's ballistic missiles is a key issue for Israel. Turkey seems unconcerned, though, and says it should be left out of the negotiations. Why?
Yeah, I think Turkey is trying to play both sides. On the one hand, they would prefer, or this is their preferred outcome, to have a weakened regime remain in office and in power, simply because that will allow Turkey to focus on allowing Iran's proxies to continue agitating regional Israel through things like Hamas and what's left of Hezbollah. And that's enough for what Erdogan wants. So that's the preferred outcome. On the other hand, I think if the regime is struck or or taken out and replaced, I think Erdogan, that's the second sort of preferred plan, which would allow him to concentrate on expanding Turkish hard power into a region where the Iranian regime no longer exists. But right now, they're trying to see if they can figure out any way for war to be avoided.
Well, we know that President Trump does respect President Erdogan. He does listen to him. Might the Turks be successful in convincing Trump not to take any military action?
Certainly they've been trying very, very hard. We had an instance of the Turkish Foreign Ministry yesterday put up a post congratulating the regime for its National Day, which was obviously rebuked by a significant number of Iranians. So there's a fundamental inability or unwillingness to read the room on part of the Erdogan regime, and whether Trump listens to him or not is TBD. But we do know this. Erdogan has been trying through, himself directly, but also through his foreign minister, Fidan, as you pointed out, to really press hard to avoid any military action against Iran. And we've seen them, volunteer to host the talks, any sort of negotiations in Istanbul, which were unsuccessful up until now. But also, we're assuming that this is going on behind the scenes, and, they're trying to see if there's any out they can give Trump such that a military strike does not happen.
Is this Turkey trying to fill Qatar's shoes and be the kind of global mediator playing both sides, speaking to everyone?
Yeah, they've certainly, they have the military clout, if not the financial clout, as well as the diplomatic clout to sort of really wedge themselves into this sort of space. But it also is a reflection on Turkey's own potential actions to essentially see if it can become not just the premier regional power, but they're also looking into things like acquiring nuclear weapons themselves. Given what's going on in the region, Erdogan's foreign minister was very sort of clear about this in the last 2 days when he was on camera on Turkish TV, suggesting that Turkey might go this way. They really are sort of essentially positioning themselves in an expansionary move to sort of, not necessarily just be Qatar, but at the premier hard and soft power in the region, because they also see this as an opportunity.
Dr. Sinan Sidi at the FDD, thank you. Meanwhile, phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire remains stalled as Hamas refuses to disarm, and a US security firm that was deployed to guard humanitarian aid sites in Gaza last year says it's now in talks with the Trump administration's Board of Peace about a potential new role in the enclave. UG Solutions was part of the Gaza Humanitarian Fund that was later shut down amid controversy. Ruth Wasserman-Land and Yaakov Lapin are still with me. Ruth, what is your sense about what's happening in Gaza? Because there does seem to be a belief that Israel thinks there will eventually have to be a full-scale takeover of Gaza, because once again, nobody is going to take those weapons away from Hamas.
Something very, very worrying is happening in the Gaza Strip. I remind everyone that it's a relatively small piece of land, not too small, but relatively small. And within this geographic area, we have armed Hamas operatives, very much alive and breathing. We also have Islamic Jihad operatives, alive and breathing. All of these are armed. Adding to that, we have approximately between 30 and 40,000 Fatah, I'm not sure whether to call them police officers, but that's what they are.
Security forces, right?
Seemingly police security forces being trained by the Egyptians and armed in preparation to enter into that same Gaza Strip. And at the same time, while all of this is happening, we are talking about 8,000 Indonesian armed soldiers coming to be a kind of a buffer zone between the IDF and Hamas-controlled Gaza, which is Hamas-controlled Gaza de facto, but in rhetoric, the Hamas is saying, no, the Fatah will be controlling Gaza. So we understand that everybody's lying. We understand that Hamas is whitewashing the fact that it will remain in power. It's there. They're saying it. It's not a matter for analysis or interpretation. They're saying it very clearly.
I mean, they literally said it on Al Jazeera yesterday.
Absolutely. There's no secret or innuendo. It's directly said. This is exactly what Turkey and Qatar wanted in the first place. So the first stage, bringing back all the hostages, dead and alive, was indeed executed, and that is a blessing. Everything else from that moment on is a huge enigma, very, very worrying. There are very many armed people within that strip. And let's not forget, we have Egypt bordering on that strip with a huge mounting, let's say, massive military empowerment within the Sinai Peninsula, and a coupling with Turkey and Qatar for the past 2 years, which is extraordinarily worrying. And they're coupling on the Sudan region as well. And all of that needs to be looked at and seen as a new emerging coalition of Sunni extremist forces, with Egypt joining hands, which is very politically incorrect, very disturbing, and yet happening.
A lot of big security challenges in an election year.
Well, she's right. And just so you know, so I told you I was going to interview Karis Rea. That's Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Ohio time, Eastern time. And I'll probably live stream that. And then I've been talking to Ruth Wasserman-Landy, and looks like have a soft date. I always say that because I don't want to say a firm date and then be disappointed, but March 2nd to interview her. So pray that that all comes together. I think that'll be one of the most important interviews I've ever done. So let's just kind of run through this. So, for example, here is the, well, I had a couple things I wanted to show you first. This is just the, where did they go? I have all these Iranian newspapers, and oh, here they are. About, okay, these are just the headlines in the Iran. More dangerous than a U.S. warship. That's Khamenei. These are just like the last 4 days. Iran-Russia cooperation expanding in all fields, including energy. And the next one there, U.S. war could start but not control. A war U.S. could start but not control. And then Trump risking U.S. lives and economy to fight a war for Israel. And so what are the Iranians doing? They're watching War Room and all these people on the woke, anti-Israel, Jew-hating right in America, and they're just parroting them as talking points of their people. Here's Iran, Cayenne, and the different things. The leadership, people have showed their greatness. Iran could surprise U.S. forces. And we don't know. I mean, they have a lot of missiles. We don't know how many they'll be able to do. Now, we don't know that they've been able to rebuild back their solid fuel. And the reason for that is you can put the solid fuel on the rocket and it can sit there on a launcher for a while, and then you just kind of flip the, not that easy, but you kind of just flip the switch, figuratively speaking, and it's off. If it's liquid fuel, you got to fill it up, and they're big rockets. Takes a while. It's dangerous. You have to have a big crew. And so if you're getting bombed while you're doing this, that's kind of an inconvenient thing to have to deal with. So nobody knows how many missiles they have. I mean, Iran will tell you 2,000, 3,000 or more. Alma research, they kind of concluded maybe 800, but still 800, if they could launch them in short order, would be a big deal because they're big payloads and they could overwhelm Iron Dome and THAAD and all these systems. So I don't know, people are leaving Israel. They've sent people home early from church kids coming over there for training on different issues, and they're sending them home early. So everybody's on edge. They don't know exactly when this is going to happen. But I want to play a clip. So this is kind of a lead into maybe just a very short discussion on Tucker Carlson's interview of Mike Huckabee. And I thought Ambassador Huckabee did a pretty good job in light of the fact, the way he was being asked questions. Now, look, I'm a lawyer. I've asked questions, but when you're a lawyer and ask questions, you have certain ethical obligations. What Tucker was doing, if you saw him, he's like firing lie after lie after lie after lie. And, Huckabee's kind of dealing with, okay, how do I deal with all these lies? It's to keep him off hand. And then when Huckabee started to respond, Tucker cut him off. So, and Tucker came out afterwards. He was at he never went into Israel. He was at the airport, at the private jet area. He says, I was detained. They pulled me aside for questioning. Tucker, I've had that happen to me. It's not any special treatment. Everybody has it. Huckabee has it happen to him because they're very security conscious. Why? Because people threaten to attack the airport and all that other thing. So they will, like when you fly on a flight to Israel, you're at JFK, you're at Boston, you're at Newark. Usually those are the exit points. They will cordon off the whole area where you're waiting and start inspecting people, going through your bags and asking questions and that sort of thing. So if you've been to Israel a number of times and it shows on your passport or they have record of it, you probably have an easier time getting in or out. Tucker's never been there. He's a total ignoramus on what goes on in Israel. And there were all kinds of Christians that live in Israel proper, not in the area of Judea and Samaria that's not under Israeli control, it's under Palestinian control. There were people that live in areas like that offer, hey, come here, Tucker, come see us. We want to talk to you about it. I don't have it teed up. There's a very funny tweet. I would call it the best cat video in history. Now, I'm not a cat person, but it said Tucker Carlson at Ben Gurion Airport, and it shows a car coming down the street. There's a cat sitting on the curb. The car sees the cat and screeches to the halt. The cat jumps out into the street and starts rolling over like it's been hit by the car. So it's like, it's actually make you like the cat because the cat puts on this great show. You can find it on X. It's very funny. But the Israel guys, this is about a 10-minute clip. I was going to not play the whole thing, but I thought it was a really good discussion. It's Ari Abramowitz, Jerry McGimpel, and Josh and Luke Waller. And my tour went up to the Waller's facility up there, the agricultural training facility that they have on Mount Gerizim. And then we went to the farm that Ari and Jeremy helped start down in the Judean hills. By the way, it was land that had not been occupied for 2,000 years. And they moved there, and the Palestinians have been attacking them ever since. Now, what does that tell you? By the way, it's in the area where David wrote some of the Psalms. In fact, when we were touring the farm, and by the way, if you go on my tour in the fall, there's a link on FB Chapel at the top of the page, John Haller Fall Tour to Israel. I would highly recommend that you go because we are going into the biblical heartland. We're going into Judea and Samaria. We'll probably go back to Aragot Farms again. As you're walking around, this is in the Judean hills, and it's like, who thinks you can come down here and build a farm? This is desert. I mean, this is really rocky, hard desert. And so we're walking around a perimeter farm, and there's this deep valley. You can't even walk down it. It's that steep. Maybe a goat could get down there. And Ari goes, you probably wonder why we bought this land. Because of Bible prophecy. Because it says someday there's going to be a great earthquake in Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will split in two, and water will flow from the Temple Mount all the way down to the Red Sea, or Dead Sea, and sweeten the waters of the Dead Sea. The primary tributary through which that water will flow is right here, and we wanted to be there, own that property for when it happened. I mean, and so Ari speaks here, and it's mostly Josh Waller and Ari, and they're talking about some of the things that happened. And they went up to interview an Arab pastor in a town in a Palestinian-controlled area. And Josh was going to talk about that. And it actually floored Josh when it happened. And I know Josh.
I think that's the real point. The righteous remnant are being refined out. And the truth is, when you think about it, there's like one alliance that's been formed between Israel and another large group. And it has been this like Christian Zionist world. And it's now, it's under attack now. There's no question about it. They're like, oh, these are the one supporters of Israel. Let's just chip away at that. Let's chip away. And they're like targeting these Christian Zionists. And that's truly a part of God's plan, because it's not meant to be a giant movement of people that are just kind of with slogans supporting Israel because they're cute slogans, or, if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. Well, that'll now be questioned. Well, what does that really mean? And it will sort of throw people off, and the righteous remnant will be sort of pulled out, refined like silver and gold. And like whatever needs to fall to the sideway will fall to the side.
That's Jeremy
One of the biggest
Campbell.
things that I just baffles me. Like, there's some things that make sense, and there's they get these arguments and they twist words and they make things. But when I looked at that priest yesterday, and I said, "Can you help me with something?" I said, "I don't understand something here." I said, "Obviously, around the world, look at what's going on to the Christians in Syria under the Islamic regime there, and where there was 2 million Christians in 2011, and now today there's like less than 350,000 that just been massacred or fled, and under Islam, and everybody
across the Middle East."
Well, yeah, across the Middle East.
Right.
Syria is probably the most extreme circumstance of the Islamic rule over Christians that there is in the Middle East. But every single Middle Eastern country is seeing a decline in Christian population. Every single one, except Israel. And I got to clarify here, because all of our listeners are really they're deep thinkers here. When Tucker Carlson said that the Christians are declining in Israel, that's not true at face value. You know what he did? It's very genius of him. And he even said it when he said that remark. He said, according to the national average. Okay.
Meaning the percentage
the percentage of the population is lesser. So in 1949,
I have the numbers
percentage of Christians were here were only 2.9%. Yeah, I think it was 2.9%.
Okay, so in 1949, there was 34,000 Christians in Israel. Today, there's 185,000.
So it's not growth.
Somebody do the math on what percentage increase that is. But in 1949, Christians made up 10% of the population, and today they're 2%.
That's not the figures that I had on the stats from
This is according to the
Jewish
Central Bureau of Statistics from December 2025. No, but no, your point is correct.
According to the national average,
your point is correct.
Lesser, but I thought it was like 2.9% of the population, and today it's 1.7 or something percent of the population. Those are the figures.
No, so in 1949, like there was nobody in Israel. Like there was like what
600,000,
100,000 people.
600,000.
So
Jews.
whatever number 34,000 Christians made up a good percentage of the people in Israel.
Right.
Today, there's 185, but there's 10 million people.
Well, because, and that's my point is that he's took these national average. What he didn't say is that Jews fled from all the Arab countries in this same time period. Christians were not fleeing from these Arab countries at that time period. Jews were, and Jews fled from the whole planet. World War II was going on. All of these things, they fled back to Israel, and so you have 6 million Jews coming back to the land of Israel. Nearly 7 million now coming back to the land of Israel. Obviously, this is not the safe haven for Christians in the world. And so he's balancing that up against, and so obviously the figures are off. He's not being.
But on a deeper level, there's a deeper truth to what he's saying.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I mean. The Oslo Accords, Bethlehem was given over to the Palestinian Authority. Before that, when Israel was in charge of Bethlehem, Bethlehem was 80% Christian, 20% Muslim. After the Oslo Accords, within months or just very, very
No,
few
I have the
years,
exact figures.
It was 20%.
It went from 85% in 1994 to the Oslo Accords being established and put in 1995, down to 35% in 1 year. Today, it's only 10%.
So just exactly. I thought it was 80-20 to the other 80-20.
In 1 year, the Oslo Accords, and which means the Palestinian Authority, the Arab rule, meaning Arabs ruling over Christians, the Christians fled or were killed.
Yeah, they fled to countries all around.
85% to 30.
Years ago, I did a little mini project calling some of these Christians in different countries and speaking with them about what happened. And they fled because of Islamic terror that was just destroying all of Bethlehem and murdering people.
You know more than that. In Gaza, there was 5,000 Christians that lived in Gaza before Israel pulled out. That was just the people that were there under the Israeli rule. And of course, Israel wasn't even really ruling. It was still under Arab, but just having Israeli presence in Gaza before 2005. You know what? Today, there's only 1,000 left. Israel pulls out. It's automatic what happens. In Taipei, where I was yesterday, the same exact story. There are 300, it's just a small village, 300 empty homes. There's 15,000 residents of Taipei. Only 50, people that are from there. Only 1,200 live there today. They've fled. There's videos. I told the priest, and this is what baffles my mind. I told the priest, I said, so you're telling me that Israel's the problem? Israel's like no other place. Well, he calls it Palestine. He also referred to 1948 as the Nakba, and
which means the
disaster,
catastrophe.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, but I don't understand how you feel secure under the Palestinian Authority. I said, I just saw a video that came out a few months ago of terrorist Muslims running down your streets here with guns, shooting in the air, and throwing rocks at the statue of Jesus down here that you have in your village. And he says, No, my friend. It's all. He didn't deny that it didn't happen. He said it's just a little internal thing between us.
Right.
And I said, what about the time when one of your boys here, Christian boys, married a Muslim girl, and the Muslims came and burned down his house? I don't know if he survived it or not. But I said, what happened then? I said, you don't feel like that wasn't threatening to the community? That wouldn't be the reason why everybody left? No. That's just all an internal. It's all internal. He literally said it. His hatred was for Israel was more than the obvious answer to the question. Radical Islam is no place for anyone but Islamists.
Okay, but let me get back to what I was saying about the truth, the deeper truth. I think that's part of what we're here to do on the show, not just to report the news, but to do it from a prism of truth and honesty and biblical sanctity. Okay. Yeah. And so from a Jewish perspective, the temple was destroyed, not because of the Babylonians, not because of the Romans. When we sit down on the 9th of Av and we mourn and we weep, we're constantly saying the real reason, because of our sins. Our sins. Part of redemption that is unfolding right now is the Jews finally taking responsibility. And so we have to own what we have to own. So we could be like, oh no, it's because of the Arabs taking over Bethlehem. But why did they take over Bethlehem? Because we made a covenant with the people in the land, and the Bible tells us God will return you to the land. He will give you the land in a miraculous fashion, and do not make a covenant with them. They will be thorns in your eyes. Do not do so. We see all the way back to the book of Joshua, when the Jews, right after the victory against the village of Ai, right? Then all of a sudden they got a little bit cocky, a little bit excited, a little bit, wow, we're being recognized, and they struck a covenant with the Gibeonites, with who were Canaanites in the land, and they didn't investigate fully, and that is part of the Jewish Achilles heel. We want peace in the world, we want global unity, but God says we're supposed to rectify the world, l'taken b'malchut Shaddai, with his kingdom, with his will, and not to strike covenants. So in that way, Tucker's right. It is our fault. Yes, the Muslims are persecuting and viciously terrorizing Christians throughout the entire Middle East and the world. Totally. But we're not doing what we need to do. That's all I want to say.
No, the bottom line is if it is our God-given land, then we need to take responsibility for everything within the land. What Israel was defending the Druze in Syria, I took great pride in that. I was like, wow, that's out of our political borders, but we see something that's so unjust that's happening, and now the Druze are begging for Israel to annex parts of Syria into Israel and let them be a part of like what we're building here. And the same thing is happening in Taiba. The reason why they're sort of turning on Israel is because they don't feel like they can rely on Israel, and they're now left alone dealing with the Palestinian Authority, though they don't want to badmouth the Muslims because the Muslims will come and murder them. So they're always like walking this like
that's
very
what I
narrow
always
road.
thought. I always thought that. Yesterday, I think it's more than that.
It's deeper than that.
Well, that's
They're in alignment with the Muslims. I always thought, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to go to somebody on the street and be like, we were trying to get someone, say, hey, listen, we'll blur your face, we'll blur your voice, we'll do everything we can. I've not found I've made calls to people. No one is willing.
This is really important for our audience to know, too.
To talk.
Like,
They're not.
if you're Arab in Judea and Samaria, like people will not be on camera with us. And the only time we do get people on camera is if they don't know who we are, like the priest you interviewed yesterday. Because you should tell people, you also went back to the other priest that we did interview last year, that appeared in an Israel Guy show, and he slammed the door in your face.
Right, and called the police on me. So I would like to think, because the common sense thing would be, to me, it's the same thing that's happening with the woke right. Woke right, do you not get it? I mean, woke left. Maybe they're all doing together difference.
By the way, they are
woke.
Tucker Carlson and Cenk Uygur.
Yeah,
they had a whole hour-long
doing together. It's the same with these Christians, and it doesn't make any sense in the world, because after the Muslims say in their mind they're going to defeat the Western world. Well, what are these lefties and woke people doing? They're just going to kill them afterwards. The same exact logic is going on in the heads of these Christians throughout Israel, that are actually the majority of the Christians in Israel, unfortunately, are these kind of Taibe version Christians. The vast majority of the Christians in Israel are the Arab Christians in this mindset, and they're actually more aligned with Islam than they are the state of Israel. And it's deeper, and I always thought before that it was a survival mechanism, but I believe it's more than that now. There may be a handful of them that are trying to survive, but more than that, I got the feeling yesterday that I was wrong. And because the obvious approach would be what you just said, Jeremy. Of course, they're trying to survive, and they got these hostile neighbors. But they hate Israel more than that. I actually believe that's what changed yesterday for me to understand. They actually hate the state of Israel more than even their own life. Meaning, they're willing to link up with the radical Islamist to fight Israel and to be one of the biggest voices of delegitimization to the state of Israel than they are to their own. It's to their detriment. I told the priest, you not understand. Israel could take sovereignty over this area, right? And you would be your beer festival that you hold here in Taipei could be Israelis would love to come here. They'd love to be a part of this your festive ancient traditions. And this could be a Christian thing that could be protected. You wouldn't have people throwing stones and tearing down your or attacking your Jesus statues and stuff. I said the Christian population in Israel has doubled since 1970. Christians are doing just fine in Israel proper. They're protected. They have freedoms. The worst thing Tucker Carlson can say about them is that they got spit at sometimes. Nobody's killing them, and they're not burning their houses down for marrying someone outside of that. And they're not. That's what these guys are saying. They're not fleeing the country because of the radical Islamist persecutions against them, but they hate Israel more. They hate what's happening. The Jews, their fight is aligned with radical Islam, and that's a kind of a big wake up to me, because I think most of the Christian world, even the Tucker Carlson world, is aligned with that as well.
So when Ruth Wasserman Landy was talking about, we're bringing in Palestinian trained policemen and Hamas is still there. What do you think is going to happen? Hamas is rebuilding. They still have weapons. So look, I think, and we have all this stuff going on, and then we'll bring the Palestinian Authority in. They just released a draft constitution. And you ought to read through it. So the draft constitution, my friend J. Micah Hancock at All Israel News did a great article on it. There's a link in the show notes to it. But you need to look at this thing because it's all based on the occupation. Israel and Jew is never used in the entire 162 articles of this document. And they say things. This constitution comes as a tribute to the continuous Palestinian structure. And we have to fight against policies of displacement and ethnic cleansing, and where settlement expansion and genocide continue in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. It's all based on a lie. And we're running around acting like we can make peace with these. And Ari is right. God gave very specific instructions. Don't make covenants with these people about the land. And they later made the point in that interview, you can go to the Israel Guy's YouTube channel and watch the rest of it, that everywhere you go to enter Palestinian-controlled area, there's a big red sign. And Ari made a point about this. We're the land of red signs. And it says, if you're an Israeli citizen, you are not allowed to enter this part of the biblical heartland of Israel. You're forbidden by law and you can be imprisoned. Ari makes a great point. They look at that, the Arabs that live there, and they think, they're so weak they won't even let their people come in here. And that's Oslo, that's Clinton and all those people, all the U.S. administrations, and now I think we're doing it again. So get J. Micah Hancock's article at All Israel News, that's Joel Rosenberg's organization, and there's one place in here where it says unity of land, diaspora, social justice. They have a thing in here, families of martyrs, victims of genocide, and they later say, hey, listen, this is Arab land. This is an Arab nation. The Arabs have expanded and colonized all over the place, North Africa, even into, there's still remnants of evidence of this in Spain and elsewhere, Eastern Europe. And Tucker made this, he really jumped on Huckabee. And he said, well, did anybody take a DNA test to prove that they were a Jew to come here and live? Did any Arab take a DNA test to prove that they were really an Arab from there? Yasser Arafat was from Egypt. Stop with this. It's so degrading. And so there's this theory out there. They're all fake Jews. They're just pretending to be Jews. Wait a minute. Let me ask you a question about that, Tucker. Well, I probably can't ask Tucker because he's got other problems, but simple question. Did Hitler insist on doing DNA tests when he was slaughtering Jews in World War II? He knew who they were. Now, Tucker will say, well, they really were. That's all fake anyway. So it's what Tucker is doing is a form of Holocaust denial. And everybody says, oh, he really slaughtered Huckabee on that. No. So I've got a link in the show notes to a X post from Travis Snow, a good young Bible prophecy guy. I think he puts on his X profile that he runs the U.S. Department of Eschatology. He's a very funny guy, has written some good books, whether you agree with him or not. And so we've got this problem, and we want to do this Board of Peace. So they had a big Board of Peace meeting this week in Washington. Everybody was there, Kushner, Trump, all the guys were there talking about all the money. And I'm going to be honest with you, Trump made a statement about, well, Hamas, they're good. They helped us get that last hostage body back. Don't say that, even if you're thinking it, because that's not what they hear. They hear surrender. I don't understand this. Okay, so here they are, at the meeting, big articles all over the place about it. And this is 3 minutes, Jared Kushner. I have to play it. I apologize. Here we go.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Secretary Rubio. We cannot change the past, but I think that what you're seeing today is that we can potentially change the future if we focus and do this in the right way. We tried to structure this meeting like a proper board meeting, like we do in the private sector, where we have all the preparation, we get the right people together, and we really report on what our challenges are, what the opportunities are, and what are the approaches. What you've seen today is just a small sample of the work that's been done, and I really want to thank the entire team that's worked so hard at this. A lot of these people are volunteers. They're doing this not...
Okay, I can't stand this. We have no other option, all of this stuff. Not making any money off of this. I don't care. Okay, this is egregiously bad policy. What never came up, and the Qatari prime minister was there. In fact, there was a scene where the Qatari prime minister and Kushner and Witkoff were trying to get Trump out of there before he talked to somebody else. And you can find the video on X. It's very strange. And I don't like what's going on. I don't like this. And nobody talked about disarming Hamas. Well, Hamas agreed to be disarmed. Well, then why aren't they disarmed? They haven't turned in one bullet, for crying out loud. It's so insane. And I don't know exactly how this is going to go. So I'll just... Did I talk about her last week? Carrie Prejean Bowler? Okay. That is a Catholic anti-Jewish group that she belongs to. And she is all over my X feed. I'm being tortured. I'm not being educated. I'm being tortured by all of this. So let me make couple quick comments about, and I think I played Trevor Loudon last week. So here's, they're talking about AI. So here's a post on AI. A single tweet just vaporized billions from cybersecurity stocks. There's all these companies out there doing cybersecurity, right? It was it Anthropic? They released some stuff to open source to evaluate security systems. And what they found was there are hundreds of major security flaws in all the cybersecurity that these firms have been designing over the years. And it took them like a day to find all of this, all these backdoors and everything. And so what happened? The stocks of all of these companies just dropped like crazy. Billions of dollars in value went away in one day because AI was getting rid of it. And AI is going to come, and people are going, is it going too fast? And I think the answer to that is yes. Here is one of the AI guys, I think this is from Microsoft. He was talking at a conference, and this is what he said about how fast AI is going to develop.
So if I was to try and quantify what's coming down the line with the advent of AGI, I think it's going to be one of the most momentous periods in human history, probably something more like the advent of fire or electricity. One way maybe we can quantify that is, I think it's going to be something like 10 times the impact of the Industrial Revolution, but happening at 10 times the speed, probably unfolding in a matter of a decade rather than a century. So really, this is an enormous amount of change is going to come, and it's still to be written how we can make that beneficial for the whole world.
So pay attention to it. And then, of course, Prince Andrew was arrested over the Epstein thing. And no, nobody's been arrested here. I will just say this. a lot of documents to go through. It's hard to put these cases together. It can take years to put them together. I think, and it's a feeding frenzy out there. I'm seeing local attorneys that I know, and they represent Wexner, and you cannot like Wexner, that's fine. But they're accosting them in parking lots, shoving cameras in their faces. They're going to OSU buildings with the Wexner name on them, shoving cameras in professor faces. And my fear is somebody's going to get killed. Because it's a feeding frenzy out there, and everybody who wants YouTube clicks is participating in it, and I object to that. And I'm watching the chats, the comments on Facebook and X when somebody posts about Les Wexner. And these are people who claim to be Christians. That's the thing, and it's he doesn't deserve a trial. Just execute him right now. I mean, that's the level of things, and I just think that heat on that is going to have bad consequences, and it's local to us. So if you're around here locally, you need to pay attention to what's going on and where you are and people who are around you, because I think it's I'm concerned about it. And by the way, don't anybody say I'm in favor of what Epstein did or anything like that. That's nonsense. And by the way, if you do that, like some people did last week on our YouTube channel, you will never comment on our YouTube channel again. That's an automatic ban. I have not gone through all the Epstein documents. I haven't gone through a smidgen of them because there's other things going on in the world, and there's law enforcement people that should be looking through those. But they're very difficult cases to make under the best of circumstances. I'm just telling you, I'm a lawyer. I know how these things work. So pray for the people that have to do that they'll do the right thing. And, the Europeans are going after people on breach of public trust in office. Okay, well, Les Wexner was never in public office, right? So he can't breach the public trust like Prince Andrew did, or the guy in Norway. So, man, maybe there's more coming against them. I don't know. This stuff's been knocking around for 20 years in a lot of cases, 25 years. I don't know if they're going to be able to make the case. If they're guilty, I hope they do. I hope they go to jail. But I'm concerned about the way it's being handled by people in the interest of getting clicks on their YouTube and other channels. I think that's highly inappropriate, and it's creating a lot of heat. So, now and by the way, you're free to disagree with that, and that's fine. Let's pray. Oh, I do want to say this. I meant to bring this up. Everybody was saying there's all this discussion online. Oh, Israel, everything is now spiritual. There's no land promises or everything. Even though God said, Genesis 12, Genesis 15, these are permanent, forever promises, people spiritualize it. And my question is, how do you spiritualize a passage like Ezekiel 36, where it talks about the mountains of Israel, and somebody being on the mountains of Israel, by the way, saying it's our land? Did we live in a world where there's somebody on the mountains of Israel saying it's our land? Go to Israel. There are people there. We just heard Josh Waller talking about dealing with some of those people who claim to be Christians. And it says, I'm going to reach into the world. I'm going to send you into the world because your actions were bad. You profaned my name. And people said, look at these people. These are the Lord's people, and yet they had to leave the land. I had concern for my holy name. This is God speaking, which the people of Israel profaned among the nations that they had gone. Therefore say to the Israelites, this is what the sovereign Lord said. It's not for your sake, people of Israel. By the way, he uses people of Israel. And I'm going to do these things, but for the sake of my holy name, which you have profaned among the nations where you've gone. I will show the holiness of my great name. I'm going to bring you back into the land. I will take, verse 24, I will take you out of the nations. I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. And there's this thing, it says that you're going to come back. Look at what it says in verse 23. Then the nations will know that I am Lord. Now, this is a very interesting phrase that bears further study. This is all through Ezekiel. This is going to happen, this is going to happen, and then they will know. The nations will know. In Ezekiel chapter 39, after this great battle, it said, and my holy name I will make known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let my holy name be profaned anymore. And the nations will know that I am Yahweh, the Holy One in Israel. And what does that mean exactly? I think it has a much deeper meaning than we're willing to give it, but this is all the way through Ezekiel, particularly in 33 through 39. And so, and there's a disagreement in our prophecy community about what does it mean? And when does Ezekiel 38 and 39 happen? And I'm like, seems like I think it's more towards the end because these phrases, and then they will know that I am the Lord. I don't see that happening earlier with all the other stuff that's going on in that last period of human history. So we'll see when that happens. But you should go through Ezekiel and look at, then they will know, and the nations will know, and see how that phrase is used each. And maybe there are other conditions, like when they will know all this other stuff. Well, then does all that other stuff get put in the next one where they say, and then they will know? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that right now. I think we're not looking at it as deeply as we should. So, interview with Karis Ray, 9 a.m. Tuesday, probably live stream, 9 a.m. Eastern. You'll be able to catch the recording. Next Sunday, I'll be doing first service and the prophecy update. And I was assigned the chapters on Jesus calling his disciples and telling that they will be fisher of men. And Pam and I were talking about this the other day. Me talking about fishing is kind of a perverse thing, really, because it's like, I don't even carry a ball retriever to fish a golf ball out of the water. That's how bad a fisherman I am. So, but I'll be talking about it. I'll have to learn about fishing this week, I guess. But I'll learn about it, but I'm pretty sure I won't love it. But and if you're a fisherman, bless you. You're not in my way on the golf course, and I love that too. So let's pray. And then Ruth Wasserman Land, probably interviewed on March 2nd. Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for, Lord, pray that you will give us understanding of these prophecies that so many seem to be confused about today. Give us the ability to reason with them from the scriptures about this. Give us wisdom, patience as we work through that process. Bless us this week. Give us opportunities to share the gospel with those around us. Bless us this week. In Jesus' name, amen.